Pit Reporters on the Performance Racing Network. And now, here's your host, Brett McMillan.
And welcome to the show. Glad to have Holly and Shane here. And Holly, Christopher Bell, now 2 out of 3 to start this season. It's funny, all of a sudden people are going, I think he's a championship favorite. I'm going, I thought he was a championship favorite before the season started. He was this close to being a 3 straight year guy in the finals.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that at the very least, Christopher Bell has shown himself to be somebody that can contend for a championship. And I'm willing to argue that this is going to be the year. I think he has a lot that he wants to prove after narrowly missing being able to contend in that championship for last year. So he's just showing what he can do and showing actually how extremely versatile he is.
Well, I think that's it, Shane. I mean, we knew he was good on road courses. And I think maybe the missing piece on the resume was winning on a super speedway, and he took care of that at Atlanta.
And it's solidifying a lot for Toyota. When you look at who is that top Toyota driver, it's been Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr. for years. Truex retiring now, Hamlin taking a bigger role as an owner. The 2311 cars look faster and faster. Another great run from Tyler Reddick. Bubba Wallace sitting up in the top 10 in points at this point in the year. But Christopher Bell, back-to-back wins, 2 of the first 3 races to start this year. And like you said, that's after nearly being a championship driver in each of the past, championship 4 driver in each of the past 3 years. It solidifies that he is the top Toyota driver in the sport right now.
Well, I think it speaks volumes when Joe Gibbs, Holly, made changes all throughout that organization after going the last half of last year without a win. But the one team he didn't touch was that Christopher Bell-Adam Stevens combination.
Right, and it's really proven itself as you mentioned. I mean, I think that he has shown that he is that top Toyota driver, and maybe having that consistency with him, because quite frankly, his teammates are not doing super great this year. They are way down in the points from where we would expect a Denny Hamlin to be, for instance, Ty Gibbs. We got to see what's going on there, and I think Christopher is showing with that continuity. And of course, Adam Stevens is amazing as a crew chief. So we're seeing what they can do, and I think they are, again, highly motivated after that near miss getting into the championship 4 last year.
Yeah, these guys just seem to work so well together.
They do, and having a crew chief like Stevens working that well with a driver like Bell, we note the success that they have later in the season, and you notice that Denny Hamlin, as well as he worked with Chris Gabehart, the decision was, let's have him move into a competition director role, kind of similarly to when you see that Chad Knaus has taken that role on with Hendrick Motorsports. And having Christopher Bell and Adam Stevens continuing to work together, and it continues to help them be that top Toyota team year in and year out.
I love the way that they raced at the end of COTA, Holly. I mean, Christopher Bell did a nice job pushing Kyle Busch, first of all, then did a great job holding off William Byron. And I know fans were waiting for somebody to push somebody, to wreck somebody, to put a fender to somebody. But I thought the great thing was these guys, and throw in Tyler Reddick there as well, they raced it clean. I mean, my question is, for all these guys who say, I'd wreck my mother for a win, are they lying?
No, they're not lying, but they just have learned they don't need to do that. I still think they would if the right situation presented itself. But you're right. I thought it was refreshing. I thought it was awesome. And that's the kind of win Christopher can really celebrate, knowing how it happened. And to have somebody like Kyle Busch get out of the car and say, you know what? Last year, not good. This year, he raced me clean, and he did it. And all of those drivers, with pulling up alongside one another, exchanging positions, it was all done in a clean way. And it's exactly what NASCAR needs, because so often I think people, general motorsports fans, have this impression that NASCAR is just a wreck-em sport, and there have been reason to think that in the past. But I thought what we saw at COTA this week with those top drivers in that race was really the way it should be run. Kudos to them.
Shane, you feel the same way?
Yeah, and I feel like I compare it to a recent COTA race. I was thinking about it during it when William Byron ended up, I think he started on the pole. He pitted before the end of the first stage and the second stage and ended up winning the race pretty easily. Tyler Reddick won that, or was in the lead earlier after he started on the pole. It looked like toward the end, coming up from in P3, looking like maybe he'll be able to get around the leaders and get to that win like we saw Byron do. But it shows how strong of a driver Christopher Bell is to be able to keep all of them behind him.
Well, and I heard Tyler Reddick this week on Sirius talking about the fact that he said, all of them had pretty much used up their stuff. Said the tire, and this was the advantage, I think, of having maybe running the shorter course at COTA this year. That they said that their tires were all gone. They were all just hanging on the edge. But the fact that they still, they didn't put a fender to each other, or at least not hard enough to knock somebody out of the way, but they raced each other respectively. And I think that made for a great show. You kept waiting to see if somebody could put a fender to somebody, but they never did.
This is why I've told you for years why I love road course racing. This is what you can have from it. And I think it is absolutely super exciting. And again, it proves that these guys are of the elite motorsports level. And again, being able to win the way that he did, I think means even more, that there weren't any fenders being put to anybody. And for those guys to show what they can do, to race cleanly, and to prove again that NASCAR is this top series where, it's wrong to think it's wrecking and rubbing is racing and all of that. On a road course, they've certainly proved what they can do.
Well, and we found out, and we kind of knew, Shane Van Gisbergen is not going to sweep the road courses this year. He may still win a road course race or two, or maybe three. And he did get a top 7. He finished sixth in the race at COTA. He's good. There's no doubt he's good. But that's the thing. The rest of the guys in this series, Shane, there's some really good road course racers in this series.
There are, and the more that NASCAR keeps going to these tracks and going back to the same tracks, the more we're starting to see the top competitors become top road course racers of their own. And then when you get guys like A.J. Allmendinger, for example, who anytime they get on a road course, they can figure out how to get their car toward the front of the pack. It's going to further help make some of those top drivers, even like Chase Elliott, for example, who are able to have those performances on road courses that consistently, when you see even like Tyler Reddick as well. And they, but not even just winning, but putting together these strong runs, a different kind of racing. And then as the cars get to be more similar and get to go to different kinds of tracks, it can continue to make the playing field a little bit different. That you just get drivers who are that skilled on all different types of tracks.
And Tala, you and I remember when, that used to be you'd go to a road course and there were like 5 or 6 guys there who
just gonna say that,
yeah, who you felt like had a chance to win, and there were like 20 guys that felt like they had no chance to win. And it's changed because you can't afford anymore to go into a season and say, okay, I'm going to stink at these 2 tracks. And these guys they've raised their skill.
And you're right. I can absolutely remember several of them who shall remain nameless say to me that they're just getting through the road course, the 2, when we used to just have Watkins Glen and Sonoma. And now everyone's getting better, and they're putting the effort in, not just the week of the race. They're putting work in to prepare to be better road course racers. And really, if you look at it, Christopher Bell, road course racing is as far from his background as it could be for the most part. And he's somebody that's certainly raised it. So I think what's happening is SVG and AJ Allmendinger are finding out these aren't gimmies anymore. They are really, really having to work for it. And in fact, I would argue there's probably extra incentive for some of these guys that you don't normally consider road course guys to do as well as they have been doing, and to show the ones that are considered ringers, hey, you got to beat us, and we're ready to take you on now.
Well, and Shane, you don't see the road course ringers anymore, and even when you saw them, they weren't winning the races, at least on the Cup Series, because they were showing up and they were getting the 3rd or 4th car, which means they were getting the 3rd or 4th pit crew, and so they were losing space. They were losing time in the pits every time they came in. And because they didn't have the best team out there, they weren't winning the races, because who's going to give up their main ride, their main top-tier ride, for a guy that's not going to get him any points?
And sometimes, though, you do see with A.J. Allmendinger when he won the Charlotte Roval here at Charlotte Motor Speedway in 2023 during the playoffs, he was saying after it that they were preparing for that one race for weeks. It's like, all right, we're going to a track. It's all right. We know we got a road course coming up in a few weeks, preparing all for that road course race specifically, and it got A.J. Allmendinger to victory lane in a Cup Series race.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Well, let's talk about COTA more. We'll do that when we come back. Will it be on the 2026 schedule? That's a big question. Stay with us.
This is Kyle Petty for Echo Park Automotive. As you might imagine, I know a thing or two about cars, and I'm here to tell you about a whole new way to buy a car, truck, or SUV. Did you know that Echo Park Automotive has over 95,000 five-star reviews? On top of that, every car that Echo Park Automotive sells goes through a 190-point inspection to make sure that it looks and drives like new, so you leave happy. It's even in their name. Echo Park Automotive. Every car, happy owner. The official used car dealer of Speedway Motorsports.
Whether your engine runs daily or only when you need it, Z-Max Micro Lubricant is the force you need against carbon buildup that can damage your engine. Combustion causes carbon and other harmful deposits to build up in your engine, fuel system, and transmission. And carbon is like sandpaper rubbing against your engine's internal parts. You don't want that. You want Z-Max Micro Lubricant. It soaks into metal and keeps your vehicle running at peak performance. Find out more at zmax.com or visit us on Facebook and Twitter. Protect your engine to the max with Z-Max.
Doug Rice is your host for Fast Talk every week on PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
It's hard to believe in this day and age in the United States of America that children are hungry.
Our time on this planet is short. We have to give back to those in need.
Every child has a chance, no matter what obstacles they may encounter.
Never have we been taxed more as a society to help kids the way we are right now.
Speedway Children's Charities raises money through several different avenues. My favorite is the gala.
It's one of those can't miss events for everybody who attends, and I've been able to raise and distribute over $60 million.
When you have 50 different organizations receiving grants from Speedway Children's Charities, that's far-reaching. And some people think, well, I don't have much money to give. I say $50 is a lot to give.
At Speedway Children's Charities,
Our mission is simple. Help every child we can.
Because all children
deserve joy
And hope.
And love. And if one child is still in need,
Then there's still work to do.
Brett McMillan returns with more of the Pit Reporters here on the Performance Racing Network.
And welcome back, along with Shane Connick from the Charlotte Observer and also Holly Kane from the NASCAR Wire Service. Brett McMillan, glad to have you with us. All right, we just had our 5th year at COTA, the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. A lot of people wondering if we're going to go back again. You know, some people feel like, well, you know, it's kind of like, you know, the Coliseum where we went 3 years and they felt like it ran its course. And, you know, we're going back to the Chicago Street Course for the 3rd year. And some people feel like this is going to be the last time we do that. How do you feel about, let's say, should we go back another year? And will we go back another year, do you think, Shane?
I think we should, and I think we will. I think that it's important to get into the Texas markets. It's themselves, but also Circuit of the Americas has hosted Formula One races, has hosted other races, and is a unique road course for the sport, as we saw this past week. And I think a great race with a strong winner, like we were just talking about. But when you have a track in a location like that that is unique in that you only have a handful of road courses to begin with, you have Watkins Glen moving into the playoffs a bit, and you have them clearly making different decisions on how to integrate these road courses. When you have one that gets you into a place like Austin, Texas, it gets you to have a race at a track that is seen around motorsports, I think it's a good place for the sport to be.
Holly, how do you feel about it?
Well, I have to agree completely with you on that. And you know, the other thing is it's not just a road course too. It's a world-renowned road course. It's a facility that people are looking at and seeing NASCAR from all over the world. They're interested to see how NASCAR does at a place like COTA. And I sure hope that it stays. I freely admit I am a big road course fan, but I think where it is with Texas Motor Speedway only having a single race, and the other thing is, you know, Austin, Texas is just a great market. The University of Texas is there. I think it still provides kind of that new audience, that young audience, the ones that are willing to say, hey, I might not have grown up a NASCAR fan, but it's been coming to town for the last 5 years. Let me check it out. I think it's good for the sport to be up there and for the eyeballs that are on it in COTA.
Well, and to Holly's point, right now you got one race in Texas at Texas Motor Speedway, and now the second race in Austin. And I haven't driven it, and I haven't talked to Brad Gilley about how far a drive it is. But, you know, 2 races in Texas. Texas is a big state. And it's not like you're talking about, you know, Daytona to Orlando, which is like an hour and a half. It's not even that far, is it, Holly? But
no, I actually worked at the Dallas Morning News, and it's about a 4-hour trip. So it really is a completely different locale inside the same state. I mean, we all know how huge the state of Texas is, but it really is. And the vibes in Austin are much different than the vibes in the Dallas Fort Worth market as well.
Yeah. So Shane, I think, hey, we've seen outside of the first year where it was, Atlantis, it was almost underwater. I think we've had some pretty good racing there. And this past weekend, I thought we had some outstanding racing. And to hear the drivers talk about, they liked the new layout going with a shorter circuit.
And like Holly said, it is really important to get into a city like Austin. I think that's a good point about how when you have potential new race fans and you have a major university there, you have people who end up living in that kind of city. The more that NASCAR continues to, with the biggest being the Chicago street race, to get into that kind of big city, it's important to get in those markets like that. And like I said, you have a race like that again, like we talked about another strong race at the track. I wouldn't see a reason why I wouldn't go back.
Yeah, and get into the geography even more, Holly. I mean, Austin's a lot closer. It's pretty close to San Antonio, and I believe it's a lot closer to Houston than Dallas is. So you're really tapping into. There are multiple markets there that you can be tapping into that you're not tapping into just being in the Dallas-Fort Worth market, right?
Absolutely. And Texans, I found out working and living there, they're passionate. And I think if you win these people over that live in that area, that's what keeps it so good. They want to show up, they want to be there, and they get excited, they buy the merchandise. And again, I will bring up that this is also a venue that Formula One visits. So you've got all the people that might be kind of Formula One people that are paying a lot of attention when NASCAR is at one of their venues as well. I can tell you the F1 drivers certainly do.
Well, and I think Holly makes a great point, because this is not a thrown together road course like the Chicago Street Course, for instance. This is a purpose-built road course that was built for Formula One. And, to Holly's point, this is world-renowned. This is a place that's known around the world, and you're running where the best race car drivers in the world run.
You are, and that's the whole thing. It's important for NASCAR itself that you can have a race there once. You can go to a racetrack one time. You can go there twice a year at one point. But it's the consistency, it's the coming back that is how you build a bigger fan base in a city. And when you have a place like Holly said about a state like Texas, where you have passionate sports fans, a lot of passionate race fans already, people who go to races every year already. If it's that twice a year, you can go to Austin, Texas, or right outside of Austin, Texas, this unique destination spot. And every year the NASCAR Cup Series is there, and it pulls from different markets than just Austin itself. That's a way that NASCAR then all of a sudden, when you're looking at, where are people watching NASCAR, talking about NASCAR every week? Oh, in the Carolinas. Well, why is that? It's always just been here. If it can become a mainstay in a state like Texas in the middle there, where, like we're saying, that place already has its spot in motorsports, even better for NASCAR.
And Holly, so we think that we all feel like it should go back. Do you think it will go back?
Well, I think the same discussion that we're having is what's being discussed in the NASCAR higher echelons, right? I know that there's talk certainly that they want to go to North Wilkesboro, add some more short tracks. And I get that. That's, really what the people that are the long, diehard NASCAR fans, they love a good short track. I just don't think it should come at the expense of a world-renowned road course that brings all of the things that it does. If we're plussing and minusing, I think COTA comes out with a lot more pluses.
Well, each week on the Pit Reporters, we give you a chance to go to GoPRN.com and vote in our poll. And this week's question goes back to something we talked about kind of jokingly in the first segment. After watching the end of the race at COTA, do you still believe drivers would wreck their mothers to win a race? And the answers you give are yes, no, or it depends on who is behind whom. Did I get that? Did I get that all right, Holly? You're a writer. Is it whom or who?
What? Say the whole thing again.
It depends on who is behind whom.
Who is behind who, I think. But, that's why I always have something I can go to.
Okay. Well,
that's why we have editors.
David, we may have to change that. It might be who is behind who. All right. Last week we asked you, should NASCAR keep the super speedway races of Daytona and Atlanta back-to-back to start the season? And we got 2/3 yes. 67% said yes, they liked the start of the season that way, and 33% said no. When we come back, the 18-year-old wonderkind wins again, but doesn't go quite so well in his Cup debut. Stay with us.
Look, how do you feel today? Maybe you're a little hungover again, feeling a little embarrassed about a few things? Listen, why haven't you called yet to get help? Man, aren't you tired of feeling this way? So listen, whatever your party drug of choice is, there are ways to get clean and sober, especially if it's messing with your life. Hey man, we all have choices. You can make a choice right here, right now, today, to call the number I'm about to give you and start a brand new life without drugs or booze. I know it's hard to think about this, but imagine how great your life could be. And all it takes is one simple phone call. I've got a team of people standing by ready to check your insurance and let you know what it takes to get clean and sober. Okay, so get ready to save this number because here it comes.
800-296-1140. 800-296-1140. 800-296-1140. That's 800-296-1140. Paid for by the Detox Treatment Helpline.
Catch Kyle Petty's Back Then Again Country Countdown with Charlie and Debbie here on PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
Hey race fans, we can't wait to see you right here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway for a wicked fast, wicked fun, fall-tastic weekend this September as we host New England's only NASCAR playoffs weekend with lots of fun activities, premium experiences, thrilling racing, and of course, one of the best NASCAR camping experiences around. Cup, trucks, mods, and it's locked in for this September. Keep an eye on NHMS.com, September 19th through the 21st, New England's big track.
Are you the next big star ready to rock Music City's NASCAR stage? Nashville Superspeedway is launching a search for one incredible local artist or band to headline the 2025 NASCAR Weekend pre-race concert. The top 10 will face off in a fan vote with a final showdown on Broadway in front of celebrity judges. Join the ranks of Music City's best and submit your performance video at NashvilleSuperspeedway.com by March 6th for your chance to be Nashville's next rising star. We're back with more of the Pit Reporters on the Performance Racing Network.
And welcome back along with Holly King from the NASCAR Wire Service, Shane Connick from the Charlotte Observer, Brett McMillan, glad to have you with us. All right, Holly, the wonderkind Connor Zilisch lived up to billing on Saturday. Didn't quite go so well on Sunday. Got caught up in a little mess that his teammate, of all people, Daniel Suarez, started, and he finished in last place. But let's talk about this kid, Connor Zilisch. He's wowing people, and I think maybe everybody agreed that Vegas was overstating things to make him like the top 2 favorite on Sunday in his debut.
I think that's asking a whole lot. And keep in mind, he's 18 years old, for Pete's sake. However, I will go, and it may not be too far out on a limb, to say this is our next Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson type driver in the series. I think he is immensely talented. He has a great head on his shoulders. And, I noticed, and you guys probably did too on social media, that Kyle Busch actually responded to him and said, "Don't worry, I finished last in my first Cup start," which I thought was great. And Kyle Busch has done all right for himself, 200 National Series wins and a pair of Cup championships. So I think that, it was tough. And the hard part is, I don't know, as much as Connor has high expectations for himself, I think when you have all of this pre-race, you're going to be a favorite from other people, let's be honest, it has to put some sort of pressure on him. And so I think now he's got the start out of the way. Hopefully he's going to be in races that, he feels good and has confidence in. Obviously the road courses, are going to do that. But I think he is the real deal, and I think he is going to be our next great star in the sport.
Shane?
The Charlottean, 18 years old, born in 2006, was looking to become the youngest race winner in NASCAR Cup Series history, and he has impressed at every level at which he has raced. He's impressed on road courses. He's impressed in the 24 hours at Daytona. He's impressed in NASCAR cars. He impressed in the Xfinity race on Saturday. Connor Zilisch really has the potential to be a future star in the sport. And like Holly said, he has a personality. He's been all over social media. He has the superstar mindset clearly already, in the sense that also he just seeming like that next one coming up in this new era of the sport as well. And so really excited to see what Connor Zilisch continues to do. And like we all probably also saw on social media, there have been plenty of other decent Cup Series drivers who become champions who their very first race, not the best finish.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a chance to talk to Darian Grubb Sunday morning, who was his crew chief. And, of course, Darian's been around a long time. And he was telling me, I asked him, I said, are you worried about how the veterans like to treat kids who get too aggressive, as Carson Hocevar learned at Atlanta, Holly? And he said, no. He goes, I think, first of all, Connor got a little humble pie in qualifying, where he qualified 14th. He goes, he learned that there are a lot of guys who are really good on road courses and fast in the Cup Series. So that he said that was kind of an eye-opening experience for Connor to see how good these guys in the Cup Series are before he ever had his first start, his first green flag. And he found that out in practice and qualifying.
You're right. And I have to say, Darian Grubb as his crew chief is absolutely, I believe, the perfect combination. Darian is so good with, keeping things calm. He's won championship with Tony Stewart. He knows how to do and how to execute, but he also, I think, is really good in terms of keeping everything chill. And I just think a really good match for any 18-year-old coming in that has all of these high expectations. And Connor, when you speak to him, you both probably know he is polite, he's kind, he's not kind of a showboat whatsoever. And the expectations that he has are because he really feels that he can do it. So you're right. He did get a little bit of humble pie, which, that's not too unusual. That's kind of the way the sport goes for these young rookies. But now he's got that start done, and I really expect that we're going to see a whole lot more from him.
And you talked about it, Shane. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He doesn't seem to get too high. Doesn't seem to get too low. I think after the Xfinity race, he got a little physical in the Xfinity race on Saturday on his way to the win. And I heard Justin Marks saying that, yeah, he actually was texting a couple of the guys he got physical with, apologizing to them on his way to victory lane.
You could see that he just is a kid or a man who just understands this new, I think, just generation a lot. And you see him on, I think there's a lot to be said about the way that these guys are on social media. You could post to just post because you have to post. You have a lot of sponsors. You're required to become a name for yourself. Or you could be making fun of other drivers because you guys are passing out, taking naps, and taking pictures of each other. Everything about Connor Zilisch, he knows what he's doing. He knows who he is. He's confident. He has the accolades on the track. He knows that, and he's just continuing to make a name for himself.
And I thought it was interesting listening to Justin Marks this week, and Holly, I think you'll probably agree with the strategy. He goes, I don't know how many more Cup starts he's going to make this year, because for the first time, they've got him competing for a championship and really want him to concentrate on the Xfinity Series. And it's not a move that I dispute. I think it's probably a pretty good idea.
I completely agree with that, because that's where he's really, he hasn't done a full season. He'd only made less than a dozen starts in all in any series between trucks and the Xfinity last year. So I think ease him in terms of, don't expect that he's going to do that. And I don't think it would hurt for him to do another road course, maybe months from now, and see how he does with something like that. But Justin really also is somebody that is so wise. And I think he's absolutely right to keep Connor going for the Xfinity Series championship. Let that be where his mind has to be. But also, this gives him a little preparation for when he gets in Cup very soon.
Well, and in your time around the sport, Shane, that this can be a grind. And, he's 18, so he's got a lot of endurance, I'm sure, and a lot of energy. But at the same time, this can be a grind over the course of a long season.
And he's somebody who's raced, like I was saying, in all different types of racing. And I remember last year, one of the first times that they were bringing him around the old NASCAR track more, and he was starting to get to learn some stuff from some of the Cup guys. He was starting to join the Trackhouse development program. And just the aspect that it wasn't like his whole life was looking up to only NASCAR and the dream of becoming a NASCAR superstar. It's that he grew up in Charlotte, in the capital of NASCAR itself, while getting involved in nearly every form of racing and every form of motorsports. And then once he becomes 16, 17 and is starting to look at on the doorstep of potentially having a full-time career, that's when he's starting to get to know the best of the Cup Series.
And when we come back, we are 3 races into the season and headed to our first, quote-unquote, normal race. And there are some folks who really have their backs to the wall and need a good performance to get their season on track. We'll talk about them when we come back.
This is Kyle Petty for Echo Park Automotive, and I'm here to tell you why you should shop Echo Park before you buy a car, truck, or SUV. Over half of inventory at Echo Park is priced below $25,000. And car for car, truck for truck, Echo Park Automotive's pricing is $3,000 less than the competition. Maybe that's why Echo Park has over 95,000 five-star reviews. Echo Park Automotive is built to make sure you drive away happy. It's even in their name, Echo Park Automotive. Every car, happy owner. The official used car dealer of Speedway Motorsports.
Imagine the roar of the engines, the smell of burnt rubber, the electrifying energy of the crowd. It feels like America. It's the Food City 500 NASCAR Weekend, April 11th through the 13th. It's racing the way it ought to be. This year, it's a triple-header weekend with the thrill of trucks, Xfinity, and Cup racing packed into 3 heart-pounding days. Visit BristolMotorspeedway.com for tickets and details.
Mark Garrow's your host for Garage Pass, here on PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
Trouble on the front stretch. Christopher Bell's car has gone up in smoke. Chris Buescher in the wall over in turns 1 and 2.
Lost half the wheel. Anyway, I think tires stayed up under the fender.
Tyler Reddick has run out of race car and run out of time. He will make one last effort to try to get by Kyle Larson.
It's the Pennzoil 400, Sunday, March 16th at 2:30 Eastern on PRN.
A fun day, a great day of racing.
Chandler Smith, a little bit of a bump from A.J. Allmendinger, has a slight lead on the inside. Oh, they're getting at it fast today. Here they come into turn number 3.
This is just a year from hell, I guess. I don't know.
Austin Hill going the high side, up on top of the racetrack to grab the lead. No pressure whatsoever for John Hunter Nemechek, who's had great battles all afternoon.
It's the Liuna NASCAR Xfinity Series at Las Vegas, Saturday, March 15th at 4 Eastern on PRN. Let's get back to more Pit Reporters on the Performance Racing Network.
And welcome back. Along with Shane Connick from the Charlotte Observer, Holly Kane from the NASCAR Wire Service. I'm Brett McMillan. Glad to have you with us. All right, 3 races in. We've got 2 super speedways and a road course. Not in the wheelhouse for everybody. So a lot of folks are going to be happy to see Phoenix and Las Vegas coming up the next couple of weeks. And as you look at the point standings, there are going to be some folks really happy to see Phoenix coming up and some regular races. I mean, the thing is, I'm looking at the standings and I'm thinking, Shane, how good like Josh Berry was at Atlanta and then got caught up on a wreck, and now he's sitting there 33rd in points. Brad Keselowski, 26th in points. These are some of the guys I'm looking at going, they've got to be thinking, I need a really good finish coming up at Phoenix and at Vegas to really get my season turned around. You know, can these guys win a race? Absolutely. But I don't think I want to rely on that to get myself into the playoffs.
And that's one of those aspects of when you have Daytona and Atlanta back-to-back super speedway races, you don't know how that thing's going to end. You don't know what's going to transpire during those final laps. And that's how the season starts, when how important points become. And then, like you said, you get drivers who don't seem to be running that terrible of races. And then you get drivers who just end up with a top 10 finish. But I think there's a lot to be said about those drivers who find ways to get in the top 10. Ryan Blaney, I think, is somebody when you look at how he's done through these first 3 races, even though he came in, I think, 7th or 19th in this past week, it's after he collected stage points and obviously after back-to-back strong races to start his year. So without a win, when you can put together 3 races like that, it almost makes it seem like you'd rather do that than win one and then potentially be down in 30-something-th, and then that's all you have for the rest of the season, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel Suarez, Holly, had good runs going, both in Atlanta and at COTA, ends up wrecking out, and he's sitting there 29th in points. I mean, heck, look at this. I'm sitting there going, Ross Chastain is 20th in points. Denny Hamlin is 17th in points right now. Now, I would expect that Hamlin is going to win a race. I would expect Ross Chastain's probably going to win a race in the regular season. I expect Kyle Larson's going to win a race in the regular season. He's 16th in points right now. And, for anybody that's thinking, I really need to get in the top 16 in points to have a chance to make the playoffs, they got some work to do.
Yeah, and it's some of the biggest names in the sport. That's the thing. I was looking over the points as you were, and I saw Jimmy Johnson, who's made one start, is ranked higher than Ty Gibbs and Josh Berry right now. So, I mean, that goes to show you. Now, you have someone like Denny and you have Ty Gibbs. Both of them have new crew chiefs this year. How much does that play in it? Are they still kind of getting it going, getting the communications, the good vibes with them? Josh Berry has had great races, and for him to have the finishes that he has and end up so far down in the points doesn't seem to make sense. Both the Trackhouse guys, 2 of the 3, I should say, with Ross and Daniel Suarez. Again, I agree with you. I think certainly Ross should win a race this year. Daniel, you would think he would. What I also thought was super interesting was at the top of the standings, 3 of the 4 guys that made the championship last year, right? William Byron, Blaney, Reddick, and Bell 4th. And again, we had that whole thing where he almost made the championship 4. So it's really kind of a continuation from last year for those people at the very top of the standings. And it leaves you wondering, what the heck is going on? When is everything going to, come the right way? But there were a lot of changes at some of these teams, and we're just going to have to see. And for Trackhouse now to field 3 cars full time, adding SVG this year, I think there's a little bit of a transition time for that as well.
Do you think at some point, Shane, that some of these teams went into this, and obviously you don't plan on things going poorly, but I think, first of all, Brad Keselowski is usually pretty good at super speedways, certainly at Daytona, and not so strong a road course racer. At least he is at Watkins Glen, but he hasn't been at COTA. And so, it's one of these, to have a problem at Daytona or at Atlanta and then oh my gosh, now I got COTA. And yet, if you can feel like you've got the strength to come back and win a race somewhere along the line, these guys just have to be looking forward. Because you talk to the crew chiefs like at Atlanta and at COTA, and they're all like going, we're not going to know anything until we get through Las Vegas. Because that's really when we're going to start to find out at Phoenix and Las Vegas really what we have in these cars.
Like you said, 1.5 mile intermediate tracks that just produce different kinds of races completely. And when you have, in the end, I just think it's so interesting. Are you racing for points? Are you racing for a win? It seems easy. It seems you're trying to win the race or finish as high as you can. But a lot of times you notice certain drivers want to put all into going for the win in certain races, and then how that ends up backfiring, or if they decide to try and stay out, try and accumulate points and think that that'll help them get to a stronger finish. It's all about the strategy, and that can be good, bad, depending on how you look at it, because of the unpredictable nature of it. And when you get to these intermediate tracks, it starts to become more of, people might think you're getting the best racer and is going to produce the best winner, and that might not happen either. But when you start the season with this much unpredictability on the super speedways into the road courses, you just got to pick your strategy. You're trying to win. You're trying to get as many points as you can, and knowing, like we're saying, how much that's going to impact the start of the entire season, when that gets you into the playoffs or not, if you win one of these races.
So, Holly, if you're one of these guys, a Hamlin or a Kyle Larson that's back there, or a Chastain, do you start thinking, going into Phoenix, going into Las Vegas, we've got to really have really good stages and accumulate a lot of points in these stages? Or do you sit there and go, hey, we're only 3 races in. We were going to have to run these races at some point in the regular season anyway, so we'll just get what we get.
Well, we know Kyle Larson is not going to get too tense about things.
Yeah, that's true.
Probably the most chill guy in the entire garage. But you know what? If I'm going to be completely honest with you, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, Brad Keselowski can go out and win a race absolutely any weekend. I don't think there's the least bit of panic there yet. And especially in Denny's case, having a new crew chief that is, as I said, that kind of whole thing. I think with those guys specifically, they really aren't too concerned yet. And I don't think they even become concerned until late summer if they still haven't won. And I think we'll see them back up in the points. I think we'll see them all win races.
Yeah, very, very possibly. Yeah, then there's the guys like the Josh Berry that could win a race, but he's more on the, I don't know that I would expect him to win a race. But there's like Holly mentioned Ty Gibbs. He's a guy that I think a lot of us thought he's ready to win a race. But do you expect him to win a race? Maybe you got him on the bingo card saying, yeah, I expect him to win a race this year. But he's getting to the point where you almost go, what? He's almost going to have to win a race in the regular season.
Came down to that last year really for him, and the whole and that's the whole aspect of it when you have the car, the Gibbs car, and it was Toyota Drive, the way they work together to try and, even if one of them isn't getting a victory lane, you have that many Toyotas kind of work with each other toward the end of that kind of race to push each other. And then that can end up leading to certain drivers like Ty Gibbs, who may have seemingly been in the lead earlier in the race, may have seemingly been on their way to at least a win in the season, just end up racking up more and more points, as it may be Christopher Bell ends up being the one with more wins. Like a few years ago when we saw William Byron win 6 races in the regular season. This can be the kind of thing that maybe they put more into Christopher Bell, win more and more. Certain individual guys from certain manufacturers just recording more wins as opposed to having the parity.
Go ahead, Holly.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say that's a great point about Christopher Bell. He's got more wins than anyone this year, and he's ranked 4th in the points, and he's 21 points off the top. So you bring up a very good point.
Yeah, but he's got 10 playoff points.
Yes, he does have that.
So double what William Byron has, for whatever that's worth. Yeah, it's funny. The 2 guys that have wins, neither of them has stage points.
Yeah. And again, that just feeds into what Shane was saying, I believe.
That'll get you a drink at the bar, by the way. Feel free to use that tonight. All right, when we come back, Phoenix is ahead. It's also the last race of the year, if you haven't heard. So how important is this one, or will the weather conditions be so opposite that it won't matter? Stay with us.
For anyone who's worried about back taxes, has not filed tax returns, and doesn't know what to do next, stop and listen. Not filing your taxes can have severe consequences, especially in this political climate. Now that COVID is over, the IRS is getting aggressive, massively increasing enforcement and collection efforts, with politicians making all sorts of promises, especially when it comes to taxes. Hiding and not dealing with your taxes will cause you harsh legal and financial ramifications. But right now, the IRS offers forgiveness and writes off a massive amount of tax debt. The Tax Doctor offers a free service that helps people get out of IRS collections and back in good standing with the government. Don't hide or bury your head in the sand. Take advantage of our free service. Call now to learn more. 800-393-5045. 800-393-5045. 800-393-5045. That's 800-393-5045.
Lenny Baticki brings you PRN at the Track every week here on PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
Anytime you get somebody at the front of the pack who's not used to running up there and who's not been there, the established names are going to scream. They're going to cry. They're going to whine. Oh, there's somebody else coming up here to get my trophy and get my money. It's Carson Hocevar. What's he doing up here? He had just as much right to get in there and force the issue. And if not for the caution, he's a race winner.
Hey, this is Doug Rice of the Performance Racing Network. That's Fast Talk right here on PRN.
Local radio brings people together like never before.
It's a beautiful hometown weekend out there. We've got
Your local stations keep you informed and involved with music, talk shows, and real-time news updates you can trust. We are live and local. We are America's broadcasters, connecting you to what matters most. Text radio to 52886 and tell Congress to support your local radio stations.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Brett McMillan returns with more of the Pit Reporters here on the Performance Racing Network.
Sweepstakes fans, start your engines. Visit echopark.com/speedway to enter for a chance to win a Toyota Tundra plus a brand new Thor camper. Visit echopark.com/speedway now to drive off a winner. And we welcome you back to the Pit Reporters, along with Holly Kane from the NASCAR Wire Service and Shane Connick from the Charlotte Observer. I'm Brett McMillan. Glad to have you with us. All right, Holly, we're at Phoenix this week, where, of course, the season will wrap up. I just don't know how much the guys will learn this week that will help them in November. Does a lot translate, do you think?
Interviewing and asking that question as we do, they all say exactly what you just did, that not everything lines up exactly. And some will even go so far as to say they're just two completely different times of year being there. The track races differently. So I don't know how much. However, having said all of that, I would imagine that getting a victory at Phoenix in the spring has to provide some sort of boost, some sort of extra something for when you show back up in the fall, especially if you're racing for the championship. So maybe it's one of those things that, you know, is not a concrete disproved or we learned this, but it's more of a positive feeling or something like that that they can get from it. But you're right. Most of them all say that you just can't compare the two races.
What do you hear, Shane?
Seems like they really are two different races, the same track, the same, but even a lot of the playoff races end up being entirely different when you think about what's at stake on the track in every single lap compared to earlier in the year. And when you have a track like Phoenix too, I just do think that it's produced different kinds of races. Like in a lot of ways, they have been strong races that you've been able to see. Oh, well, I felt like, especially when Blaney won the championship, it seemed like he had earned it in passing Kyle Larson and in earning that championship. And that this past year, it was that his teammate was a little bit faster than him in the Penske car. And so I do think that when you have a championship race at stake and you have that much on the line for those 4 drivers and that much on the line for everyone else and how they're going to want to impact or potentially impact that championship playoff races are entirely different, but when you have the 4 drivers going for what they're going for and what's on the line compared to any other race, it makes that championship race that more of a unique event itself.
Do you think, Holly, that, you know, I mean, to your point, is it more of a boost that it gives you an idea what your flatter track package is going to be, what it's going to help you with more earlier throughout, at least earlier in the season at your Richmonds and, you know, of course, New Hampshire's not till fall this year, so I don't know how much it'll help you there. But for your flatter track packages, it gives you more of an idea what you're going to have early in the season.
I do believe that's kind of what the takeaway is going to be. And you know, as the schedule is, you know, at the beginning of the year, as we've already all 3 alluded to, and part of the reason why they're not too concerned about championship points yet is we're so early. We're seeing a different kind of track every week. So I think that what they get out of Phoenix this week is more likely to help other similar tracks, as you mentioned, than necessarily when they come back to race in the championship race at Phoenix.
Well, of course, we know last year, for instance, the Fords didn't win until Darlington, and then yet they end up winning the race at the end of the season.
And that's been the case. That was all last year in the beginning of the year. When are Ford's going to get a win? And it ends up being that, once again, Well, they got to victory lane at Phoenix in the championship race, and there's a lot to be said about the season-long strategy that goes into that when you have Chevrolet cars that seem to be the best, and some of those drivers are the best, and then William Byron's winning races, and every year Kyle Larson's the top guy, Chase Elliott's a top competitor, and then you get the Toyota cars being fast, and something I think is interesting right now is how strong 2311 has been itself. That team has just been making strides. Tyler Reddick winning the regular season a year ago. But now it actually is that Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace are really competing almost better than the Gibbs cars when you look at the top Toyota team in the sport right now.
How do you like this? I mean, we don't have California on the schedule right now, and we don't know when it will be back on the schedule, Holly. But we still got it set up to have something of a West Coast swing with Phoenix and Vegas back-to-back.
I think that makes all the sense in the world. And we talk about it all the time, but when you realize what it's like to have to go from the West Coast to the East Coast, back to the West Coast, and we've had seasons, as you know, where we really crisscrossed the entire country. And so I think that this is just another example, frankly, of modern schedules that make a whole lot more sense. So I think this is absolutely the way to do it. And the West Coast swing also is kind of that special achievement, that people still want to go out and say, we refer to it, so and so, fared well on the West Coast swing, or so and so did not. It's really a way of kind of judging things too. Now we're only down to 2 tracks, but I like the way it's set up, and I still think this is the way to do it.
You know who won this race last year, don't you?
At Phoenix.
Yeah.
That was
Seabell.
That's right. I wasn't going to blurt it out and be wrong.
Can this guy make it 3 in a row and start a dominant performance this year?
I think he certainly can. I was actually just with him and Chase Elliott, Daniel Suarez, and Ryan Blaney in Mexico City, looking at the track that we're going to be racing there this summer. Had a lot of time to really kind of talk to them informally. And I am telling you, Christopher really, and I will tell you this too, the questions he was asking about the Mexican circuit were very interesting to me, much more racing related in terms of different things. So I think he right now is in the groove, shall we say, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he won at Phoenix too.
You mean he wasn't asking who's got the best fajitas?
He was not asking who had the best fajitas.
I'd be asking where the best margaritas are personally, but that's me, and I'm not driving. So, I mean, as you look at it, but that's, once again, but like you guys talked about, there've been a variety of winners. If you look back on this, obviously, Logano's won the 2 championship races, but you got Byron, Chastain. Remember he won the race that Blaney wins the championship in. But you got Christopher Bell in there. You go back before that, Chase Briscoe, Kyle Larson, Martin Truex. I mean, this is. You got a long list of guys, a variety of people who've been winning races there. So I would think that at this point in time, you could go in with a toss-up, and especially, Shane, as we've talked about before, the way this season started, and talking a lot of crew chiefs, we don't know what we have until we get to Phoenix.
And at this point, it's even more of that case when you look at the fact that now, at this point in the season, I think just the timing of it. The fact that now we're in about where you've had 3 races under your belt. You've been in different places. You're getting into this new West Coast swing as part of the season now. You're gonna be halfway through the season before you know it. And so if you already have been a strong competitor, this is really getting to the point in the season that could kind of start to make or break just the kind of driver kind of season it is when you got about half of them making the playoffs and about half of them not finishing above that cut line.
Yeah. There are going to be some major adjustments, I think, coming out after the next 2 weeks, after these guys find out exactly what they have after they've run Phoenix and Las Vegas back-to-back. When we come back, it's time for our white flag laps. Stay with us.
This is Kyle Petty for Echo Park Automotive. As you might imagine, I know a thing or two about cars, and I'm here to tell you about a whole new way to buy a car, truck, or SUV. Did you know that Echo Park Automotive has over 95,000 5-star reviews? On top of that, every car that Echo Park Automotive sells goes through a 190-point inspection to make sure that it looks and drives like new, so you leave happy. It's even in their name, Echo Park Automotive. Every car, happy owner. The official used car dealer of Speedway Motorsports.
When it comes to maintaining your engine to run at peak performance, trust Z-Max Micro Lubricant. Z-Max soaks into metal, so it's easy to add to your oil or gas to disperse carbon buildup in your engine, fuel system, and transmission. Protect your vehicle's engine to the max with Z-Max. Check us out at zmax.com or visit us on Facebook and Twitter to find out more about our full line of products. Remember the name Z-Max for your car, big rig, small engines, firearms, and more. That's Z-Max Micro Lubricant.
Doug Rice is your host for Fast Talk every week on PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
We saw a lot of chaos in the closing laps of the race. So just trying to minimize that, make it more about a race than people just using each other up.
I think it's needed. It was needed at all the road courses. While I don't think it's going to be a home run, I think that it'll be in the right direction.
So many opportunities to either be really good or make mistakes, and they can start adding up on you quick.
For the latest NASCAR news without a restrictor plate, it's PRN's Garage Pass. For the station near you, check us out at goprn.com.
Hi, this is PRN's David Stiles. Join me each week when I head over to JC's Garage to talk NASCAR.
As of right now, if I were to name my top 5, I could tell you Chase Elliott wouldn't be in that top 5 with this next-gen car. He has a lot to prove on the road courses with this next-gen car, but I still don't think there's a real out-front leader. I think Tyler Reddick has been outstanding.
That's JC's Garage, wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
We're back with more of the Pit Reporters on the Performance Racing Network.
And welcome back. Time now for our white flag laps. And first up from the NASCAR Wire Service, it's Holly Kane.
Thank you. I want to give a shout out to something big that's going to happen this weekend in Phoenix, and that is going to be Catherine Legg, who is entering the race. It'll be the first time a female driver has entered at the NASCAR Cup Series level since Danica Patrick raced. I believe it's been 7 years. Catherine is a very, very talented sports car driver, also open wheel driver. And I don't know if Phoenix is where I would have necessarily thought she would make her first start. I would have thought maybe a road course, but the 1 mile oval is going to be a good chance to see what she can do. And I think people should look. I think she is very, very talented race car driver. And hopefully we'll see her back in the series. This will work out this weekend and we'll see her down the road.
Well said. Look forward to seeing her out there. And yeah, we're all pulling for her. We'd like to see a successful female driver in the series. No doubt about it. Next up from the Charlotte Observer, Shane Connick.
Now, I do think that even though we've had 2 winners in 3 races and they have been 2 of the top drivers in the sport, in the playoffs year in, year out, this is another really, really strong season for the sport, because what it's showing is that every week it's anybody's race. It's showing that top drivers can do what they got to do to get into victory lane, or they can do a lot and then not be able to make it toward the end. Then you get Christopher Bell back-to-back weeks being able to finish it. I think it's another great season for the sport where unpredictable. What's going to happen? Who knows?
That's why we're here. Absolutely. Well, we talked earlier about the Circuit of the Americas and the question of whether or not NASCAR will go back there for a 6th year next year, and I sure hope so. I like COTA. I think it's a great road course. I think it's one of the best in the world, and the fact that Formula One drives there tells you that it is one of the world-renowned, to use Holly's word, respected courses around. It is a purpose-built road course. It's run by some of the best drivers in the world that aren't in NASCAR. So NASCAR absolutely should drive there. It gives NASCAR a worldwide credibility, much the same as running at Indianapolis does on the oval. Not the road course, the oval, as they should be doing at Indianapolis. It's not a gimmicky track, a gimmicky race like the Coliseum was, or like the Chicago Street Course is. This is a world-class road course, and NASCAR should be there. We've seen great racing there ever since that first year. Take that off the board because it was a deluge of rain. But we've seen great racing there. The drivers have adapted, and we've seen great racing and a solid market that NASCAR should be in. Let's hope that NASCAR keeps going back to COTA for years to come. Who do you like at Phoenix this week, Holly?
Christopher Bell.
Oh, going for 3 in a row. Shane, how about you?
Kyle Larson's time to get his first win of the year.
All right, if he can keep the tires on the car. We'll see how that works out for him. Hey, well, Shane, Holly, thanks a lot for being with us. Thank you for being with us on the Pit Reporters. We'll talk to you next week. Have a great week.
Join us again next week for the Pit Reporters on PRN, the Performance Racing Network.